The beam and buckets slammed into the dirt with a hollow thud. But Turul knew better than to mistake it for rest. Heavy and trembling from relentless strain, his arms crossed over his chest in a brief, instinctive gesture, seeking a moment's relief that never truly came. The soft, dawn light caught the slick sheen of sweat and grime coating his skin, throwing every thick cord of muscle into brutal relief. Rounded shoulders knotted with tension, veined biceps still swollen from exertion, the cruel spiked shackles bit visibly into his flesh, a grim reminder that no part of him was free.
No stopping. Your ox. Next's the mill.
Came the clumsy bark that shattered the brief moment of stillness. The giant lingered near, his dull, empty gaze never leaving the battered young captive, as ordered. There would be no pause, no mercy. Not for this new slave. Thomas's clumsy hands shoved and herded the burdened slave forward like driving a beast to slaughter, steering him toward a rough-hewn wooden structure, hunched against the fortress wall. Inside, the kitchen already seethed with the crackle of fire, as cooks roused to their tasks. Beyond the smoke-stained doorway, crouched in the gloom, rose the mill. A crude, battered frame of wood and iron, lit by guttering torches. It waited, like a hungry beast for its new muscle and bone.
Quick now. The cook's waiting on you.
With another shove between the shoulder blades, the giant steered the exhausted captive directly toward the looming wooden frame. As Turul reached the crude structure, a guttural voice barked.
Push.
He didn't resist. No defiance would earn him a favor. Only delay the inevitable. Before him stood the mill. A low, circular platform of packed stone and timber, worn smooth by generations of footfalls and sweat. With a resigned breath, he lifted his hands, and pressed them to the beam's rough surface. This was no royal mill grinding fine flour for the king's feasts. It crushed coarse grain into meal, for the compound's lesser mouths. Large and rough-built, it had been designed for the effort of several men, but today, it was turned by one. As Turul pressed his shoulder into the heavy beam, the mill resisted like a beast rooted in the earth. Then came the first soft groan of wood and stone, the sound of reluctant motion, as the grinding stones shifted for the first time. Muscles already strained from hours of toil burned anew, as the well-built captive leaned into the beam, his robust frame forcing it forward with raw strength. His bare feet slipped in the slick mud, while the heavy resistance pulled back at him with every stride. As the grinding wheel began to move faster under his relentless pressure, the creaks sharpened. A harsh chorus of exertion and fatigue. Yet, it wasn't the grinding load that burdened him. It was the heavy shackles biting into his wrists, and the iron weights chained to his ankles, that dragged at his steps. This kind of toil posed no real challenge for a body forged in battle. The heavy beam, the grinding resistance, and the weight pressing against his limbs demanded only strength. And that, the enslaved warrior had in abundance. With steady power, he drove the mill faster, each turn sharper, more forceful.
Better to be quick.
He thought grimly.
There's nothing to see here.
This labor chained him to one spot. No corners to glance into, no paths to measure, no vantage to mark. Just the endless circle, blind and closed, fit for beasts and slaves. But the mill's path was a prison. A perfect, punishing circle. Each lap dragged him through the same patch of damp soil, past the same smoke-stained wall, under the same flickering torchlight. There was no destination, only return. Round and round, again and again. The monotony gnawed at him more cruelly than the weight itself. His muscles, built for battle, now moved like worn cords, in the dull ache of submission, stripped of dignity and direction. The brutal circle of labor seemed endless, its weight unchanging, its path unforgiving. Turul pushed on without pause, unaware of time, his body locked into the rhythm of strain. At first, the soft hues of pre-dawn clung faintly to the sky, casting a gentle glow over the compound. Flickers of firelight still danced behind the windows nearby, silhouettes of cooks moving inside. But as the circle wore on, the torches dimmed, and the firelight faded. Daylight crept in, washing the walls in full clarity. And still, he labored, a lone figure caught in the relentless loop. Then came a sharp, echoing slap behind him. Sudden and loud enough to slice through the grind and groan of the mill. It was followed by a familiar, venom-laced bark.
Idiot! That's too easy for him.
As Turul labored the mill in reverse, the scene came into view. Roka, hand still lifted after striking Thomas hard across the jaw. The hulking servant stood dazed, the red mark on his cheek, far less cutting than the sting of disgrace. He had only followed orders, no fault of his own. But this wasn't correction. It was a show of control. The strong hero understood it then. Even the overseer was just another tool, lashed without cause, to remind who held true power. The chain of cruelty held fast, and he was shackled at its end.